uh, how well. So these are some very incredible initiatives that have been taken under his leadership, and I welcome Mr. V. Srinivas. The second gentleman is somebody whose career I've had a ringside view to since the very start of that at NIC, Mr. IPS Sethi, Director General NIC. I have seen him working and computerizing one of the most important departments called Posts. E-Tal, I don't know if you're aware. In India, every electronic transaction is measured and captured, which is something even US doesn't do. So he was behind E-Tal. He's behind computerization of the Prime Minister's office, satellite communication, Aadhaar authentication, and national database of unorganized workers. He is the person I have seen working, rolling up his sleeves and working with several people like Shefali Dash, who then, went on to become Director General of NIC. And while there have been several attempts, देखिए आप भाषण दे दीजिए नहीं तो मैं दे देता हूँ. Shivam, what's going on? So NIC has survived. Almost about 15 years back, I had written an article called "To Be or Not to Be," NIC, and that was the time there was a tremendous pressure from the private sector and some parts of within the government to dismantle NIC and merge it with state governments and merge it with respective ministries. Fortunately, that step did not get taken, and we still have a very strong NIC. So as I started, we are now in a Trump-centric world. So is that good or bad? In some ways, it is actually very good because, blunt is the best. So all the niceties and overheads of the diplomatic world have been thrown out of the window. You're saying, let's not be nice to each other, let's be business-like, let's talk about what's in it for you and what's in it for me. Actually, you would recall that even Prime Minister Modi has had, since the very beginning, a very business-like attitude, although he is very humble, the way he presents it and the way he negotiates. But, being blunt and upfront, सीधा और सच्चा होना जो है, I think that's the best policy. So therefore, there will be an honest assessment of everything, whether your government is performing or not, whether you're wasting money or not, whether your trade barriers are adequate or not. So one of the things that happened before Trump was that, we had this very left liberal kind of a construct to even the global trade. So post WTO, Europe, since they could do nothing about the tariffs and no one could touch the tariffs, a lot of non-tariff barriers were coming up. So these non-tariff barriers were ESG, environment, social and governance. They could be data residency. They could be, many, many things which you use to block the trade with other countries rather than addressing the tariff issue itself. So I think Mr. Trump has brought the tariff right back on the table. So we are not pussyfooting around the issue anymore, and we are saying let Europeans be nice, rest of the business has to be very open. So why is it that so much of emphasis is being put on efficiency everywhere? It is being put because it is crucial to create the fiscal headroom for the government to be able to fund the social democracy in India. Even the Supreme Court has come down on the freebies and what it is doing. But the fact of life is that there are a lot of inequalities, and there has to be a state intervention to take care of those inequalities. Until the time people learn how to fish, they should not die of hunger. They have to have food on the table to eat. To fund all of this, where the money is going to come from. So if you look at the current budget, there is hardly any expansion in the size because there are no more fiscal resources. So One of the ways out is to be able to do things efficiently, do more with less. That's the focus not just in India, that's the focus also in the USA, and increasingly you will find most countries will go in that direction. The second thing which is very important is reforms. In the current budget, the Honorable Finance Minister has announced setting up of a committee for high-level reforms. Now, these are very important for ease of doing business, because willy-nilly what has happened is slowly the ease of doing business is sliding into what I call jokingly as dis-ease of doing business. You know, on paper we have one nation, one tax, which is GST, but what we have is one nation, 28 taxes. So, and not just GST. So the other thing is that there is a lot of technical capacity gap. I hope the mission Karam Yogi that Srinivas ji is heading is going to address that, but there is no technical unit in GST. You know, so tax administration and tax policy are hopelessly mixed. So much so that tax administration becomes policy. So there are a lot of industries. I was reading recently, not GST, but custom duty. A lot of automakers have got thousands of crores or lakhs of crores worth of notices on their import bills. Similarly, lakhs of crores of taxes have gone to the gaming industry on GST. Now, these notices have to be real. You have to look at what is the size of the industry. What was their turnover? Did they collect the tax and not deposit? So, was it evasion of that nature? Or was it an industry practice? And if it was an industry practice, then why is it that the government system was overlooking it all these years, and suddenly 5 years later or 10 years later, you wake up and ask for a decadal tax demand, or half a 5-year tax demand? It's not fair, and it sends a very incorrect message to the world in terms of investment friendliness of India. So when we talk of reforms, these are the things also we have to look at. I am therefore not suggesting we forego revenue, but we are saying if there is accountability, then it has to be equal accountability. If for 10 years someone was paying less tax because it was industry practice, then someone in the government was also accepting that tax because that was the government practice. So what about penalty on the other side? That is fair. So as I said, with Trump we come to the era of blunt speak. So this is the kind of blunt speak that you'll see more of. Now, Honorable Prime Minister has given us all this dream of India 2047, which is, India becoming a developed country by 2047. And I did a book which charted out the roadmap to that. So how exactly this is going to happen? So amongst a lot of things that need to be done, we find there are capacity gaps within the government in terms of being able to take data-based policy decisions, because statistics is an area which is India has been extremely poor. We are very data rich, but we are extremely statistically poor. Now, how do you correct that? So, about a year back, we set up India 2047 Center of Excellence under the aegis of SKOCH Development Foundation, which is a not-for-profit, and we are working on how to measure things that you treasure. So, if you say, are you efficient? What does that mean? If you say, have you transformed? What does that mean? You're giving good governance, what do you mean? So we have been able to actually put a number and ranking to all of this, and you are aware that we've been doing this work for almost 30 years. So we are now publishing this research as indices of various nature. The second thing the Center of Excellence does is proof of concept, which is monetization of digital assets. As I said, India is very data rich, but statistically poor. Now, I think some of the biggest databases that we have are under Digital India. There is no data that India does not have. Every flagship scheme, everything that touches the citizen, every infrastructure project, it's there. Unfortunately, currently, the project that we have, India AI, is focused more on creating an LLM or India AI model. But the sitting duck use case essentially is that we can overlay AI over Digital India data and we can do magic of transformation. There is so much of automation that is possible within Digital India itself, and one of our recommendations has been that how do you overlay AI over Digital India and make that deliver faster, better, more efficiently, and why that is required I'll come to shortly. And we've been creating these use cases and trying to share them with the government that if you're doing Narega, then you can perhaps use AI and do it better. If you're doing this, you can use AI and do it better. And then we are documenting best practices. I was sharing with Mr. V. Srinivas that government has zero institutional memory. So 10 years back something happened, or 20 years back what Mr. Sethi did in NIC, probably within NIC there will be no record. There will be no film. There will be no film about Temi or Namchi in Sikkim where they, reached the unreached, or of Majuli in Assam, or of Uttarkashi in Uttarakhand. Now we have 30 years of India's reform history on videos, on case studies, on documents, on award nominations. I was looking at a nomination that we had received 20 years back from Andhra Pradesh, which was 15 years back, which was from Mr. Sanjay Jaju, who is now Secretary INB. He had done a project called E-Seva. So how E-Seva started and what were the objectives, and its journey we've kind of measured over the years. So we are bringing all of this together as a knowledge repository of best practices. While all of this is happening in India, I was talking about the left liberal construct that has been harming India. So if you look at India rating and global indices, the story is very poor. So if you look at global indices on e-government's development index, India's rank is 105 out of 193. On hunger index, we are 111. On gender inequality, we are 108. So once we started looking at all these indices, we realized that they were, one, looking at cherry-picked published data. So when you say that e-governance development index and 1/3 of the value is for internet penetration, and when you say internet, you look at only wired internet. You don't look at wireless internet. Now wireless, India is wireless internet country. Your driver, your maid, your press wala, everyone is on wireless internet. So if you take out 80% of the Indian population which is using wireless internet, obviously you will be 105. Because India never had wired internet. It was very few. We straight away went into wireless. Similarly, if you look at gender inequality, they talk about percentage of women in the parliament. Now that's meant for small countries. India is a 3-tiered structure. We have parliament, we have states, and we have Panchayati Raj institutions. In terms of elected women representatives, we are the largest in the world. But if you say we have 150 women in the parliament and not 250,000 elected women, then obviously our rank is going to be that bad. So now the problem is that in government of India there is no Ministry of Indices. So it's no one's job really to look at all this. But it creates a very bad narrative, and you will find all these indices are interlinked. So you will find that EGDI may actually end up impacting your sovereign rating and may increase your cost of borrowing. You would not even know about it, but at the back they're all connected. So we did a lot of this, and we said if these were actually more India specific indicators, what would they look like? And we found that on EGDI SKOCH will be 10, on human development we will be 10, on e-governance will be 2, so on and so forth. We did all this work and we went back to the government and we said now we have to do it. So government said this is very good, but why don't you do this for all the countries? And I said then who will fund it? So there is no Ministry of Indices, so there is obviously no budget for indices. So no one can fund it. And one SKOCH Development Foundation is tiny to fund India narrative globally. So we said now, so let's start from the reverse. What we can do easier than doing global is we can measure what's going on in India. So we started creating indices from e-governance to transformation to ESG to corporate governance, so on and so forth. And we said that when you say India's, let's say, human rights is bad, what does it mean? And recently we released a study of Nifty 50 companies versus Fortune 20 companies on human rights. and we find that we are actually better than them. Because what does the minute you get into definitional issues, that human rights means these 20 indicators or 30 indicators, you can compare. And once you can compare, you know the rating. Right? So that's the kind of work that we've been doing. These were the EGDI problems that I talked about. So having studied all of this and having studied e-governance and infrastructure for almost 30 years now, we are today introducing something called Governance Transformation Index. In the last 10 years, how the government has transformed. Now what we are doing is, we are taking technical governance transformation in terms of how much technology has been infused. So we have taken only 3 parameters here. These are very similar to what EGDI does, but these are more relevant to India. The first parameter is internet subscribers per 100 population. We don't care whether they're wired or wireless. Do you think it is relevant? What is important is internet penetration. How you get internet penetration is completely irrelevant. Otherwise, you are saying if you are wireless, you are not internet. If you are on a phone line, you are internet. I mean, grow up. And the second is state-wise cell density per 100 population, because a lot of services in India are IVR based, there are intermediary based, and they may not require internet at all. They are SMS based. You can do on regular phones, you can do payments and so many other things that you can do with them. The second is human capital index. Again, if you look at EGDI, they take into account secondary school, percentage of people in secondary education. Now in India, do you even need education to use government services? Do you need UPI? Do you know, what do you do? Because you have IVRs, you have intermediaries, you have CSCs, and you always have somebody else to ask, right? So the only valid criteria here is gross enrollment ratio till elementary education, which we have taken. That is also because UN insists that there is a human capital element to it. Left to me, even that is probably currently not relevant. Then online services index, UN does based on surveys. Fortunately, India is the only country which, thanks to NIC ETAL, captures every transaction. So while in other countries they'll guess how many electronic transactions are happening, we are having their count in real time. We are also having the count of number of government services available online in real time. So we don't have to guess. So this is the kilograms of it, quantity. Kitna हमने infrastructure डाला है, this is all our input. What is the output? Now this will not tell you what is the quality of the thing. So that we have been doing actually state of governance, for which all of you are there. For 30 years we've measured project level outcomes. If you were doing so and so project in Dharamshala, then how many people benefit, what was the problem you were trying to solve, what changed, what is the outcome. So this is the only primary research in governance that happens in India, and again we have a history of doing it. So if you add up the infrastructure and you add up the outcome, half average that, you get governance transformation index. Any questions on this? Any disputes on this? We are open, because we are just talking of this as a work in progress. This is how we've gone about making the index. So let's start with technical governance transformation. Infrastructure. So you would find the average for 2015, we've taken 3 time periods. The 2015 average and 2019 average. The saffron line is 2019 and 2015 is the blue line, and the grey line is 2024. So you find that in terms of infrastructure deployment in large states, there has been improvement, but it is not very huge. So there is more technology infusion that is called for. This is quality of governance, which is our state of governance. Now you find there has been a huge jump. What was average in 2015, which is the blue line, average 2019 and average 2024. In 2024, actually it has gone down from 2019. So 14 to 19, quality of governance really went up. From 19 to 24, it has not gone up. It's gone down slightly. But if you look at added together, the transformation index is steady at where it was over these two time periods. So you see there was a lot of buoyancy from 14 to 19. Now these were the early harvest benefits of things like Digital India, administrative reforms, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, all these good things that have been unleashed by Modi 1.0. In the period after that, you had the COVID impact, also the rate of technology infusion and the rate of service delivery has to be improved. Okay, so there is a realization on this, and that is why we are talking a high level committee on reforms, what needs to change. So if you look at star transformation states, number one state is Andhra Pradesh. Number 2 is Gujarat. Number 3 is Telangana. Number 4 is Maharashtra, and then Kerala. And average performance of large states is 0.4. So what are the conclusions that this gives us? One is index was buoyant from 2015 to 2019. This was the early harvest of Digital India and administrative reforms. It has stayed at a similar level between 19 and 24. This highlights the need to increase government efficiency. A fresh dose of administrative reforms and technology infusion is called for. The next big boost may come from overlying artificial intelligence on Digital India, what I talked about. The report of high-level committee of reforms proposed by the Honorable Finance Minister would be a key component. The state should follow the centre's lead and form similar committees looking at state-level reforms. The area where the reforms are most urgently required are actually districts and municipalities and panchayats. So if you look at the biggest problem in ease of doing business is at this level. If you have to put up a telecom tower in a district or a municipality in Maharashtra, you will hear nightmarish stories of how difficult that is. If you have to work in a small office in Gurgaon, your biggest challenge is not GST or income tax or whatever. Your biggest challenge is how to deal with the municipal corporation. Roads, infrastructure. So, while we are talking of a lot of committees at higher level reform, there are no committees for either municipal reforms or district level reforms or panchayat level reforms. And one of the big problems is that a municipal commissioner or district commissioner is not responsible for economic development. So unless we make sure that every DC, every municipal commissioner's agenda is socio-economic development, the number of jobs generated, the quality of infrastructure, the ease of living, the ease of doing business, it comes down to that level, India 2047 will remain a far-fetched dream. And this is where I said there is a lot of headroom available for technology infusion as well as reforms at district, municipal and panchayat levels. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have, and at the least feedback if you think we are on the right track. Does what I've presented make sense? Doesn't make sense? Anybody? Shivam, we have someone with a mic? Someone?
Hi, I'm Rohit from Jammu Smart City.
Yes, please.
I looked at the data and the statistics and I liked the quote which you said. My idea is that the inferences you draw are based upon factors which you have defined, or is it something which is taken from an order and you have refined it for India?
No, so there are two factors that I've taken into account in methodology. One is what I said is EGDI, which is your e-governance infrastructure, but we have adopted it to the Indian context. EGDI methodology that we used is the same as what UN does. So that's the part of it. Qualitative part of it is SKOCH qualitative research methodology. Using the data, we have been coming out with state of governance report card for decades now, which is based on project level findings, which is our own methodology. And since you are sitting here and you have possibly qualified for an award, that is the methodology that is being used here, that you have filled a nomination, you have given details of your project, you have gone through a independent jury evaluation, you have gone through a beneficiary voting of what changed for them, and then you've gone through an expert vote of people who are in similar areas or diverse areas, but in the area of government across the country. It's a sigma of all of that. And this methodology has never been questioned over the, so, you know, it has given results like when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, we could say that Mr. Narendra Modi is the best Chief Minister. When Mr. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister, we have been able to say that Mamata Banerjee was the best Chief Minister in so and so year. And it has never ever been refuted because you can't refute data. This is primary research and it's 100% documented. Not only is it documented, it is available on public domain. Since you are from Jammu Smart City, whatever you submitted stuff, who was speaking? Who was talking? Whose question was it? Yeah. So you have submitted a lot of things to us, right? You would have given a nomination form, you would have given a jury evaluation, there would have been voting. You've been through that process? Now 100% of that is available online. There's nothing hidden. Right? So it is as transparent a methodology that is possible. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other feedback? Okay, so with this we move on to the main speaker.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is there a question?
Yeah, there's a question.
So I'm pretty ready from Andhra Pradesh, sir.
We can do one by one. Yeah.
Regarding women empowerment, we're only seeing how many parliamentarians are there. That's how I think we are trying to, how many are there in the government jobs. However, as we see in the rural areas, sir, it is in Andhra Pradesh, at least I've been witnessing, it is the women who are leading the families ahead for their growth also. They are more interested in educating their children, putting them into better colleges, more than the gents themselves, sir. Otherwise, even 50 years back also, sir, the women, even if they have to dig the soil in those hard this thing also, the women have been working at the homes as also going with their male partners to do the work in the fields, sir. So I think if we take all that, women have been leading the growth of the country more than the men themselves, though we are in the government jobs and security jobs like that. That's one, sir. Two, as regards the efficiency of the government, sir. While e-governance is all very fine, we are doing very well. The problem for the common man comes where the efficiency at the lower level in the government departments is concerned, sir. I mean, since you're talking of the reforms, there is a huge gap in the secretariats everywhere between the IAS and allied services and those who come from the state level, sir. There is no, in the promotions also, each government for popularity, they would say there won't be any, examinations for promotion to the next rank. It is just by seniority or reservation or whatever. That is indeed actually impeding the growth and actually affecting the morale of the common public, sir. Whatever is through e-governance, that's very fine, they're benefiting out of that. Where the human aspect is concerned, the inefficiency lies in these, where the governments are very liberal at promotions and don't have any quantifying method of efficiency for the government employees, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very, very relevant question. As you look at this chart, as you said, e-governance everyone is doing. The point I am trying to make is that e-governance is stagnating for the past 4 years. The data tells you that. Your next point was Andhra Pradesh and women. Andhra Pradesh has actually done an outstanding job in women development, more so even in the area of livelihood linkages, SHG formation, and we have documented hundreds of case study films from Andhra Pradesh of women who've taken the lead, and a lot of that went into a report called Job Generative Impact of Modinomics, where we looked at Mudra Yojana, SHG formation, etc., and the pronounced impact that it had on women. What I have presented to you is State of Transformation Index. What later in the day, Dr. Gurshan Dhanjal is going to present to you State of Governance, which will specifically look at women, rural development, what is happening in each area that you called out. This is the top level view, and the idea behind my presentation was that whatever we could achieve by technology infusion has largely been achieved. Now is the time for new push. So new technology infusion, new reforms, and as you rightly said, that state level reforms lead a lot to be desired. So while we have a DRPG, we also have probably administrative reforms in all states, but I don't know whether they are having a similar mandate to what Mr. Srinivas does. What is the capacity building? Is there a state level Karam Yogi platform? And as you said, that there is big difference between secretariat and people below that. So exactly I am saying, talk about district level officers, municipal level officers, panchayat level officers. India cannot grow unless we change that mindset, we do capacity building there, and we bring about the change. So while incidents of corruption may have reduced largely in other segments, we still find that there is a problem at the bottom.
Thank you, sir. Very nice presentation. And what you have said, you have find out some indices for the measurement of these state performances. What I put here, that what we say, the Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Telangana, Maharashtra, and Kerala, they are largely big states, and some small states, especially Himalayan states like Uttarakhand, are doing very good in kind of administrative transformation. But there are some constraints of internet connectivity and other things. So can we have some different set of indices for the measurement of those states who are working and aspiring for their better?
We actually have the same data available for small states as well as union territories. But as you rightly pointed out, that they are challenged geographically and in many other areas. And so therefore the infrastructure may not be at par. So since that news was not very encouraging, and we don't like to discourage people, we have not released that data, but data is available for anyone who's interested. So if you are from a particular state and you want to know where your state is, we would be very happy to share it with you. We only talk about people who are doing well. We don't want to talk about people who are not doing well, because there are enough people doing that. We have small states and we have UT, and given that it's state by state data, you can slice and dice it anyway. You can talk about hill states, you can talk about northeastern region, you can talk about anything. So, I mean, just to share with you why I have not released is, you may find that Delhi is one of the poorest performers. But if I say this, it may not be construed as an academic comment. So we'll have to wait for a while and then release that report. Clear? We are done? Thank you very much. We will have time for more questions. I would invite Mr. V. Srinivas, who's practically a giant in public service, and his thoughts. And if you could, at the end of it, if you could throw on what could possibly states learn and do from what you're doing at the center, that would be very nice.